I'm 15 years old. I go to Fossil Ridge High School, and I am pretty much just a regular teenage girl. I mean, I take an hour every morning to get ready because, of course, I need to change my outfit at least 20 times. I take about 500 pictures of myself every day just so I can put the best one as my Facebook profile. Me and my friends were those really annoying drivers you see, driving around town, listening to rap songs just so we can feel like gangsters. So you see, I am pretty much just a regular teenage girl. But I'm here talking to you today, so obviously I am a little different. Right now, a lot of you are probably looking at the stage and thinking, what is that crazy teenager doing up there? But this crazy teenager plans to end world hunger someday. I first got into world hunger because of my dad. Growing up, we would talk about everything, and he would always preach to me about the importance of food in our society. I remember one day when I was eating a bowl of rice and I accidentally dropped it on the floor. And you know what he told me to do? He told me to pick up every single grain of rice, wash it off, and finish eating it. So obviously I did start off with an awareness of food really early on. And this awareness only increased after my first trip to India a few years back. While I was in India, me and my dad took a walk one day, and he got me ice cream. Picture me in really cute pigtails eating ice cream. When this little girl comes up to me, who's about 10 years old, and she's holding a baby on her shoulder, and she's asking me for something. So I get some money from my dad, ready to give it to her, when she shook her head no, and pointed to my ice cream. See, this little girl, she didn't want money to buy toys or clothes. The first thought that popped into this little girl's mind was food. And that's when I decided I never wanted to see that again. I never wanted to see anyone begging for food. According to the United Nations FAO, 1 out of 7 people in our world go to bed hungry. So if this auditorium represented the global population, 1 out of every 7 of you would be going to bed hungry tonight. And that's not fair. But you know, unlike me, a lot of teenagers don't even know that world hunger exists. And then the ones who do know about it think it's sad, but they don't really give it a second thought. So think about that. Most teenagers, most of my generation, don't know or don't care that millions of people in the world are dying simply because they're hungry. Now, let's compare two historical events. During World War II, the Holocaust killed 11 million people. Now, around that same time period, the Bengal famine of 1943 killed 10 million people. I took a mini survey the other day and I asked a friend if she knew what the Holocaust was. And she said, of course I know what it was. I've read books, I've seen movies, of course I know what the Holocaust was. Now, I asked that same friend if she knew what the Bengal famine was. And she said she had no idea, even though we just learned about it in school. Now, both of these tragedies happened around the same time period, and both of them killed millions and millions of people. But you know, the Holocaust ended when World War II did. Hunger, malnutrition, starvation continue to kill millions of people every year. And still, teenagers don't pay attention to it. Now, I love talking about hunger. I could talk about it all day because I love talking about hunger more than I like talking about boys. But it makes me sad that I can't talk about these things with my friends, with my classmates, or any other teenager at my school. Now, I understand that hunger is my passion, and not everyone's going to share that passion. But teenagers don't seem to care about any global issue, whether that be hunger, global warming, overpopulation. Teenagers just don't seem to care. Now, one thing I know about teenagers is that we love to interact with each other. We like to talk, we like to gossip, we like to argue. That's what defines our teenage culture. Unfortunately, teenage culture is very limited. Our culture is dictated by the social norms. See, almost every teenager of every single clique in high school cares about one thing, and that is to fit in. Fitting in is like a survival instinct for most teenagers. Our lives are very here and now. We only talk about, and our culture revolves around, the things that affect us right here, right now, whether that be the math test coming up, or the big party this weekend, or the football game last night. It's hard for us to think about, let alone talk about, things that aren't affecting us right here, right now. So, teenage culture is enclosed in a really small box. In that box lies all the things acceptable to talk about. the things that are current and fresh. Now, outside of that box lies all the things you want teenagers to talk about, like global warming, overpopulation, world hunger. You tell us to step outside of that box, but that's like asking a fish to step out of the water. See, most teenagers will stay in those boundaries because that's the safety zone. Talking about global issues means we would have to leave that safety zone. We would have to go into that brave new world. We could get bullied, we could get teased, we would risk not fitting in. And that is what's stopping teenagers from caring. I learn a lot just by talking to my friends. Interaction with others is how most teenagers gain knowledge. But by being limited in this small box, we don't really talk about much. So you can tell a teenager to step outside of that safety zone. And sometimes it works. But to force an entire nation of teenagers to step outside of their safety zone is impossible. See, the answer is not making teenagers step outside of that box. The answer is expanding that box for them. We simply need to incorporate global issues into teenage culture, make them interesting enough and relevant enough so that teenagers can connect with them. So first we have to ask ourselves, what is relevant in the lives of teenagers? What do teenagers connect with? Well, I'll give you a rundown of the life of an average teenager. We go to school, we come home, we do media-related stuff, and we go to sleep. So obviously, the media part of our day is the most important part. According to the LA Times, teenagers spend an average of 7 hours and 38 minutes on media every day. That's more than the time we spend at school, and sometimes even more than the time we spend sleeping. I know that every conversation I've had today has been about a new song, a Facebook post, a funny YouTube video. The media has a huge power over the minds of teenagers, and right now it presents us with two obstacles. One problem with the media is that it basically dictates what each social clique can talk about in high school. Whenever you watch a popular sitcom about high school, like Saved by the Bell or Boy Meets World, you always see the band clique always talking about bands, the druggies always talking about drugs, the cheerleaders always talking about their hair. Basically, when watching these sitcoms, we teenagers learn what it means to fit into our personal social group and what it means if we don't fit in. In all of those sitcoms, there's always that one teenager who defies those social norms, and he's the one who doesn't fit in. He's the one who's considered a freak, who's bullied and teased. Then all the rest of the teenagers who follow those social norms religiously are the ones who have a set group of friends and are the ones who have something to do every weekend. The media basically tells us that if we don't follow those social norms, we're not going to fit in. And honestly, that scares the hell out of us. Now, I'm going to set another thing straight. Every teenager throughout history has shared a single motto. Don't trust anyone over the age of 30. Now, this motto has a lot of truth to it. As teenagers, we don't like to listen to what adults have to say. That's why school bores us so much. That's why we zone out whenever our parents try to talk to us. As teenagers, we don't trust adults. So then when I turn on the TV and I flip to a channel like CNN or BBC, what do I see? I see all these really old people, definitely over the age of 30, talking about global issues, talking about politics, talking about the news. And then I flip to a channel like MTV and I see all these young people, like me, going out, having fun, doing whatever they want. That's when teenagers begin to associate global issues as an old people thing. It has nothing to do with us teenagers. It's not part of our social norms. I mean, you never see a young person talking about the news, talking about global issues, do you? But maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to have these young people engaged in all these conversations. That would send out the message that, hey, caring about the world is not just an old people thing, it's a teenager thing. It's current, it's fresh, it's badass. If we change those media stereotypes, the real life stereotypes would definitely go away. Teenagers would feel comfortable talking about virtually anything. Anything would be fair game. Now, another problem with the media is that it basically downplays the effects of all these issues. As a teenager, the entire world revolves around me. That means I'm basically cut off from anything that doesn't affect me right here. And the media basically pushes this idea. A normal teenager would care about Justin Bieber's new haircut or Channing Tatum's new movie, not knowing that there are teenagers out there who would have to care about how to feed his family the next day. See, there are literally shows that take these huge issues and twist it so that instead of raising awareness about it, it actually makes fun of it. Shows like South Park or Saturday Night Live. I watch these shows and they are so funny, but a lot of teenagers who don't know about these global issues in the first place watch these shows and think that it's the reality, that all these global issues are nothing but a joke. Now, the media also stereotypes all these issues as being a foreign concept. The few times the media does talk about these issues, they always make it take place in places like Africa or India. So as teenagers, we begin to believe that these issues don't affect us right here at home. But they do. In 2011, 1 out of 10 residents of Larimer County had to go to the food bank to receive food to feed their family. 1 out of 10. But how many teenagers know this? How many teenagers know that hunger is something that affects us right here at home? Not many. And that's because the media is stopping us from seeing that. So right now, the media is an obstacle in our goal to involve future generations. It makes us either too afraid to talk about these issues, or it makes us assume it's not a big deal. But you know, it has such power over the minds of teenagers, we could easily use the media to our advantage. We, teenagers, don't watch the media because of the content. Teenagers get attracted to the media because there's irony and sarcasm and gags that make us laugh when we read a book, that make us laugh when we watch a movie. Who's to say we can't do the same with any global issue? It's been done before. For example, The Biggest Loser, it's a reality show in which obese contestants compete against each other to see who can lose the most weight. I watch it religiously. Now, currently it garners millions and millions of viewers. This is a perfect example of the media taking a very serious issue, in this case obesity, and turning it into something that's informative as well as entertaining for teenagers to watch. And I think you can do that with any global issue. I mean, all of these global issues could be turned into an ironic video, an inspirational R&B song, an action flick. I mean, the fight against global warming could easily be turned into an adventure novel. Now, each of these issues have an untold story to them. Someone just needs to let these stories be told. All it takes is one joke, one story, one idea to make these teenagers engaged in these very real issues. Should we let things continue the way they are? Should we just let teenagers not care about anything other than themselves? Why should you care about us crazy teenagers? Well, it's these very same crazy teenagers who are in charge of your future, my future, and the future of all coming generations. Now, what exactly is coming up in the future? In 2050, it's predicted that the global population will reach 9 billion people. In 2050, it's predicted that a lack of food could start a third world war. In 2050, it's predicted that water will become a major trade commodity. In just a few decades, our entire world could face total disaster. And while a lot of you are probably getting heart attacks while I'm saying this, it's not up to you to solve these problems. Unfortunately, most of the responsibility lies in the hands of those who don't really care about it, the teenagers. We need the teenagers to care about the world, and to care now. Otherwise, these problems may never get solved. Our society needs to make caring about the world a lifestyle. What's easier, having a generation of old folk completely change their mindset, or having a generation of teenagers grow up caring about the world? If we can make sure that caring about the world and caring about these global issues is part of the lifestyle, then saving the planet would no longer be a burden. It would simply be a culture. As a society, we need to team up with movie producers and song recorders and celebrities to make sure that the media does emphasize these issues. As individuals, we need to engage these teenagers, tell them a joke, tell them a story, give them an idea, just like my dad did for me. We need teenagers to care, because the crazy, loud, obnoxious teenagers of today are key to a more sustainable future. Thank you.